Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski joins us now. Colonel Karen, a pleasure, my dear friend. Is it a coincidence that Donald Trump has surrounded himself, I'm talking about his national security team, principals, as you folks in the government call them, and deputies, to a person, ardent Zionists?
Yeah, well, obviously, it cannot be a coincidence. There's no way. There's no way that this was a requirement. Whether it's a requirement that Trump himself, generated, or if it was a requirement of his election. I mean, he took a lot of donations from pro-Israel lobbies and Zionists. So, you have to get something for this money. Trump is known as a transactional person, I guess. So, this was probably the price. I do think, he has friends. He has friends that are Zionists, people he's known all his life, like Witkoff, So that kind of makes sense. But the rest of them, they had to jump through a hurdle, which they successfully did.
Were you surprised at the text of the Signal conversation that no one raised any moral or legal concerns? Why are we killing civilians? Don't you know this is a war crime? These people are 10,000 miles away from us. They don't pose a threat to us. Haven't we done enough for Netanyahu and his crew? Did the absence of comments like that surprise you, Karen?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the way they spoke and cheered, it was like, video game, almost like the commentary that you might have in a multiplayer game, where you can talk about these things and cheer each other on. That is very juvenile. And it was as if it wasn't even a real American defense activity. It was actually just almost entertainment or fun amongst people that, unfortunately, for all Americans, have a great deal of power. These guys are making and executing our foreign policy. So it was way too casual. But the other thing is, this is war. I mean, they were describing war. They were speaking in terms of war. And this had never been, it had not come before Congress. Congress has not authorized this war. So there was that aspect. The other aspect was, of course, that the Yemenis, the Houthi and whatnot, these guys are only attacking Israel, passage of Israeli serving ships that are under Israeli contract or whatever. They are attempting to, reduce Red Sea traffic for Israelis. They wish to hurt the Israeli economy, something that, we've talked openly about as a country trying to do to Russia, in that proxy war. So Americans understand that, but none of that was mentioned. That it's an illegal war, that it is a war, that it is not for the protection of all shipping, because most of the concerned shipping doesn't go there anyway. It is specifically for the protection of Israeli shipping, and then, of course, protection for American, naval forces that are there, which are only there to protect Israeli shipping. So, they're really kind of tiptoeing around the fact that this was an Israeli military operation that we executed for them.
Have these people attacked us? Have the Houthis attacked American ships or American planes?
They've attacked American military ships, but they haven't attacked any non-Israeli related thing. And the Houthis have been very clear. This is the other thing. We're not super clear in what our foreign policy is doing, what the objectives are. I don't think a lot of people don't even know. But the Houthis have been extremely clear in the objective that they have, that it relates to Israel's treatment of Gaza, starving the Gazans to death, murdering them, destroying their houses and homes and businesses, hospitals, killing the journalists, all of the things that Israel is doing in Gaza. The Houthis and the Yemenis government has said, this is why. This is what we are opposing. We are standing up for Gazans. Now, if you say you're standing up for Gazans in America right now, you might get hit with a lawsuit, or maybe some goons will come and arrest you and detain you. But that's the Yemenis government and the Houthi position. We are standing up for Gazans. This is what we're doing. Very targeted, very focused, very clear. And it's as if it doesn't exist. It is as if we, the Americans are making the rules and we want to blow up something because we're going to protect shipping. Well, they're not. That's not what they're doing. So we're being lied to, which of course we're used to that. But it is a little upsetting that the lack of awareness of our own principles group.
If you are here in the U.S. on a green card or on a student visa, and you publicly stand up for Gaza, you run the risk of having that visa, either the green card or the student visa, suspended by Marco Rubio, who will claim that you are an impediment to the effective execution of American foreign policy by your exercise of free speech.
Yeah.
I don't remember this in my lifetime.
No, I think probably this is from the Wilson era, maybe Lincoln. I mean, you got to go pretty far back to see this kind of destruction of our protected God-given natural rights of free speech, free assembly, all of these things. So, yeah, it is. Well, we have been warned, right, that war is the health of the state and that countries, nations, governments go to war. And the biggest benefit that they get from that is a suppression of dissent in their own societies, whether it's a democracy or a dictatorship. It really doesn't matter. You can more easily suppress dissent and cause people to behave as slaves to the government if you're at war, right? This is the beauty of it. So we're seeing that, but the thing is, it's not our war. It's Israel's war, and Israel's kind of somehow able to leverage our government to do the very things that would have the founders rolling over in their graves. This is why we fought a revolutionary war. And this is why they designed a system of government. It wasn't perfect, but it had checks and balances. And it said, government shall not interfere, will not, restrict or all of the things that are in the first 10 amendments. And certainly the First Amendment is very clear. So, yeah, we are watching the disintegration of our Constitution in real time. And these people that are being detained and arrested and thrown in jail, that's real. These Americans, I mean, we may think, the murder of, 180,000 Palestinian men, women, children. We may think, well, that's far away. That doesn't affect us. Well, it's coming home. And it starts with restricting our ability to have free speech and to think freely and to ask questions of our government.
Here's the person arguably behind the suppression of free speech in the United States. Chris, cut number 11.
These ignorant demonstrators. Who are they demonstrating for? For these murderers, these rapists, these mass killers. This is a reflection of a deep rot that has pervaded the intellectual hub of free societies. And this vilification of Israel, the Jewish people, and Western values has been propagated by a systemic alliance between the ultra-progressive left and radical Islam. It must be resolutely fought by civilized societies to safeguard their future. This is why we must all commend President Trump's decisive actions against anti-Semitism, and we must pressure other governments to do the same.
Did you catch that word, other? And we must pressure other governments. In other words, in addition to the pressure we have put on the United States.
Yeah.
To do.
Yeah.
Does any of this surprise you that he would say this so brazenly and publicly?
Yeah, I mean, Netanyahu, he's been prime minister for off and on 20 years or so. And he is a political animal. And he is, very responsive to the political world that the political lake that he swims in, the swamp that he lives in. And he knows how that works. This is out there a little bit, which indicates either desperation on his part, political desperation, or he's quite confident that he can say these things and not be challenged. Because quite frankly, the way that Israel is conducting their so-called defense against Gaza and Hamas, which is totally unmatched, right? I mean, it's Israel and the United States together have overwhelming ability. In fact, the reason Gaza has to be rebuilt is because of the overwhelming military destructive force brought on it by Israel and the United States. So this mismatch in power, and yet he speaks like this.
What is the nature and extent of his tentacles into the United States Congress, either directly or through that group, AIPAC, American Israeli Political Action Committee?
Well, one thing, and I can understand why they want to get rid of TikTok or restrain TikTok, because there's a lot of information out there, which is valid, that shows how many of our congressmen are not just bought and paid for, because you can go to Open Secrets or any other place and see who the donors are. But the sense that many of these congressmen are also scumbags, I use that word loosely, but people who do not live particularly upstanding lives, are not driven or do not proceed with character and all the things that they do. Many of these people are blackmailed. I mean, and they're the kind of people that can be blackmailed, because, not everyone can be blackmailed. But many in our Congress can be.
What does TikTok reveal about these people?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of amazing
dirt about individual members of Congress.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them that seem to be under the thumb of AIPAC in particular. But then you have a combination. There's a whole crowd of people that are still mad at Bondi for not revealing any type of useful information regarding Epstein's Island, right? That's still an issue for people. There's a whole TikTok fan group, and I'm sure it's on Twitter and everywhere else, that says RFK Jr. is compromised via blackmail. So, he's a good Catholic, not as good as, not like the Pope, right? I mean, the Pope will occasionally criticize Zionism, not RFK Jr. He's great on everything else, but not on this. So why? It's inconsistent. And so a whole bunch of people in social media around the world talk amongst themselves about their favorite issue. And in almost every case where people are failing to live up to our American and pro-Trump, I should say, we just had an election, he's popular president, but those voters are saying, this isn't right. Why is this guy doing this? It's not America first. And I think that's really the big umbrella of complaint about the stuff that Israel is doing, and the stuff that Trump is doing in service to Israel. That is Thomas, America first.
What did Congressman Massey reveal about AIPAC? That he is the only member of Congress that doesn't have somebody working in his office or directly connected to his office that's an agent of AIPAC?
I believe he's the only Republican member that doesn't have a AIPAC minder, but it's because I think maybe there's some, like Tlaib and some of these folks, I don't think AIPAC bothers with them unless it is to gather information to destroy their character or make sure they don't get elected again. But no, amongst Republicans, Massey is the only one. And what this means, and he said, look, it's not sinister. These people come from your district, but they're not putting America first. These are people who don't put America first. So, why, what business do they have to dominate our Congress and our foreign policy? It's really, it's not right. I mean, people sense that it's not right. And that sense of things not being the way they should be, that's what I think I see across the world in social media, and of course, non-American and non-Western media, which is pretty well controlled by the Israeli narrative. But around the world, everybody sees the inconsistency and they wonder about it.
President Trump nominated Elise Stefanik, a Republican congresswoman from upstate New York, to be the United States ambassador to the UN. She sailed through the Senate confirmation committee that was investigating her. And then before the Senate could vote on her nomination, he pulled it. Claiming that he didn't want to take another Republican from a very fragile two-vote Republican majority in the House. Is there a backstory there, or is that the true reason why he pulled her nomination?
Well, she's certainly a reliable Zionist, and I think she made kind of a a fool out of herself in her initial hearings that she had. You know, they asked her something about Israel, and she quoted something from the Bible, which of course the Bible is filled with many things, but it made her sound a little off base a little bit. But in any case, that was maybe my opinion and some others. But yes, she definitely had total stamp of approval, Christian Zionist all the way. But here's the thing: Massey doesn't always vote with President Trump. He doesn't vote with them on taxation, and he doesn't vote with them on wars. So he really, if they're counting Massey in that 2-vote margin that he has, he definitely does need Stefanik. So I think I don't see anything strange in that. But I'll tell you what, with a lot of the Zionists, American Zionists that Trump has surrounded himself, a lot of the Israel firsters that he has surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
Given Trump's tendency to fire people, he's willing to do that. He's not afraid to do it. It does mean that he almost has to play even-handed with the firing. So there will be pro-Israel members of his cabinet that get fired. I have no doubt that will happen. And you know, he may just have so many there for insurance, because I think you know, we saw how he was, you know, 8 years ago. He went through quite a few people now that he had chosen poorly, and he had to go through them. But he's also chosen poorly now. I mean, in many ways, you could run down the list. You know, there's many of his appointments are not the best in class. So they may be sacrificed at some point. And so in doing so, he's sacrificing some of his Israel first thing. I think he's a negotiator. I think he knew what it meant to take huge quantities of AIPAC money, Adelson money, AIPAC donor money. He understood what that meant. And he may be, and it's my hope that he is simply being transactional, which is what we think of him in, you know, okay, this is what I have to do. This is what I'm going to do. And as he moves forward, because I cannot see Trump. I know he doesn't understand history. You know, he's very surprised. He didn't understand really a lot about Ukraine and Russia until towards the end. I mean, maybe even after he was elected, when he started really thinking about what was going on there. And he was surprised at some of the things that he did not know. And I was surprised that he did not know either, because so many of us have been following it. And we do know what's going on.
I neglected to show you a photo when we were talking about freedom of speech. You know, this is part of the video. I can't show you the whole video, but this is a photo of the Secretary of Homeland Security looking like she's on the front page of a magazine, except for the people behind her. She's in El Salvador. That is the maximum security prison where the prisoners are virtually stripped naked and packed in like sardines. Yeah. One of them, the government admits it sent him there by mistake, and he has every right to live and be in the United States. Now, in my years following the judiciary and my years as a judge, I've never, ever heard of the federal government admitting in court to a federal judge that they punished someone by mistake. But they did make this acknowledgement yesterday. Now they claim they can't get this guy back. Well, she could have gotten him back right then and there, and Donald Trump can get him back with a phone call to the president of El Salvador. But to me, I'm going to use the phrase of my dear friend and your colleague on this show, Max Blumenthal. This is prison porn, showing pictures like this. Now, I didn't take the picture. The feds took the picture. If we played the whole thing, she gives a speech. I don't want to play it, but she gives a speech with these poor unfortunates behind her. Not a single one of whom had a hearing before being deported from the United States. Not a single one.
Well, that's a bad sign, because if the laws if they're not going to be honored, they're not going to honor the Constitution. They're not going to honor other laws that we have at the federal level for these guys. They're not going to honor them for us, and we're all in trouble. I think that is the dark potential future that we face, with the way that and I don't mean to pick on Donald Trump, but he and his cabinet have taken a kind of cavalier attitude towards the law, and that's very dangerous for them. It's dangerous for them to do that, and it's dangerous for the rest of the country. So
my piece coming out tomorrow night is called Taking the Constitution Seriously. It will aggravate my friends in the White House and the West Wing, but I felt morally
good
compelled to write it because they don't care about free speech, and they certainly don't care about due process.
Yeah,
because everyone being deported is entitled to a hearing of some sort. I have to ask you this because I saw this in your column on judgesnap.com. Did Israeli generals once have full and on-demand and unfettered access to the Pentagon? Is that true?
well, they did. Okay, after 9/11, the entry to the Pentagon itself, some of the rules changed. They got a little tighter with their entry, because prior to that, I would never have known this because they had full and unfettered access. After 9/11, they put new, turnstiles, a whole bunch of other things. And when you had groups of folks larger than 3, they needed an escort. And they had a group of 6 folks that came in, so they needed an extra escort too. And I was the second escort. I was called down. Hey, we need to bring these guys up. So I didn't know. Well, I think they said who they were, but of course I could see who they were when I got down to the entry level. And we were ostensibly, me and the other guy were to take them up to Wolfowitz's office. And they knew the way. They led the way. They were upset that we took as long as we did to get down there, and that was expressed to us. And they took off. We followed them to Wolfowitz's office. And then, of course, as I've written before, and it did stick.
Wolfowitz was the deputy secretary of defense under Rumsfeld.
That's right. And so we got up to Wolfowitz's office, and Wolfowitz's door was shut, but they walked right past the secretary. She jumped up out of her desk, tried to stop him from barging into his office. She said he has another person in there. They actually got to the door, but she pulled the door shut, had him, calmed him down. I guess whatever that was very urgent. Not really, but it was just the attitude of urgency. And so I said, trying to be helpful, that hey, well, we have some spare time. Maybe you want to sign in, because everybody who goes into Wolfowitz's office has to sign in, especially if they're not from the Pentagon. And that was the secretary waved her arms at me. No, they don't have to. They don't have to sign in. And educational is stuck in my mind. I was interested in that. So yes, that's what I mean by free and unfettered access.
Do they have that? Do they have that today?
I haven't been in the Pentagon. It's just as hard to get into, and it's probably even more open to members of the Israeli military and, of course, the embassy. So I wouldn't have any doubts that it is not with headsets there. I mean, they probably have their own facility. Maybe they gave them CNN's office space. I don't know, but I'll tell you, this is not something that people normally see or hear about, and they don't normally think about it. And it is a sign of a subjugation of our government in so many ways, and like you well know, a subjugation of our Constitution. So we have to fight it. We have to expose it, and we have to fight it tactically and strategically, because this kind of thing will destroy. It'll destroy the country that I've grown up in, and it's not acceptable.
Colonel Kwiatkowski, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, no matter what we're talking about or what photos we show you. Thanks for your analysis and for your cheerfulness, even in these dark times. All the best. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thanks, Judge. Appreciate it.
Sure, pleasure. And coming up tomorrow, Wednesday at 1:00, Pepe Escobar on what he saw in Yemen at war. At 2:00, Aaron Mate. At 3:00, Phil Giraldi. At 4:00, Max Blumenthal. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.